I'm sorry if these sound effects are copyrighted or something like that, but we got to get a little lightsaber action in here. Um, Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, Star Wars edition for
Woohoo!
March 28th. Yeah.
Finally. We've been
Yeah,
talking about it for long enough.
that's right. Yep. So if you disagree with me too much, I'll lightsaber you.
Ooh.
How'd that sound over camera there?
Pretty intimidating.
Okay. All right. So this episode is gonna be really nerdy. Let me set this down. For viewers, you can see I've got Ray hair today. It's
That's right. Getting in style.
yep.
I didn't
Um
really do anything with my hair, but can this sort of be layabouts with
yeah,
my
you can,
headphones here?
yep. I bet they sell
Stretch it a
those
little bit.
actually,
They
like
probably do,
headphones,
yeah.
stuff like that. So, and I guess so this episode is going to be like super for me, super show and telly. I'm going to try
Mhm.
to explain everything pretty well. We do have a couple other oh, well, I should tell everybody then what lightsaber that was. That was Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber for people listening.
And did you
Um,
choose that specifically?
I did. I
Okay.
did.
Why?
I chose that specifically because Qui-Gon Jinn, in fandom, there is the idea of a gray Jedi, and he
Mhm.
being traditionally one of the earlier ones, one that kind of was opposed to the way that the Jedi Council would involve the Jedi so much in
Mhm.
political matters, and he was not one to take a lot of orders from the Jedi Council. You know, they
Sure.
talk about how is one of those things where he is, um, they even say in the movie, you could just if you just listen to him, you could be on the Jedi Council, but he doesn't care about that. He cares
Mhm.
about doing what's right, listening to the Force, and so I super admire him. And in traditionally in they talked about in the Clone Wars that he was the one to discover how to be like live on with the Force after death. So to
Sure.
be a Force ghost. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that's pretty cool too.
All right.
So
I mean,
I'd
you could
warn
have
you.
had me with just, like, Liam Neeson,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I like the whole backstory better.
yes, my warning of true nerddom right here. It you should be able to tell by now, I suppose. It's gonna be bad. So,
Or good,
well, yeah,
depending
or
on your
good.
viewpoint. Or
Yep.
gray.
From a certain point of view. Yeah. Yep. Um, well, how was your week? We met earlier this week, middle of
We
the week, to talk
did.
about Westworld season
Mhm.
3, episode 2. So everybody go
That
and
was
watch
fun.
that. Yeah,
Yes, please. Yes, it's just a video only, so unfortunately, no podcast, I believe, correct, John?
that's correct. Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, so
Just
go check it out on YouTube, go check it out on Twitch. I did put it up on our Facebook page as well, and it'll be coming to the website, on a different kind of page, so go
nice.
watch that because I love
Cool.
Westworld. I love talking about Westworld. I
Yeah,
mean, I love talking about Star Wars too, but yeah. I
we
mean,
can't fit it
Westworld's
all
like a home
into
new.
one episode, you know?
Oh my god, we could, but
We
that would
wouldn't do
be
anything
epic.
justice. Yeah.
It'd be a marathon. It'd be our whole Saturday.
Yep. Yep.
So, so
Well,
yeah,
how's it been
we
since
did
then?
meet. Well, I mean, you kind of know since we also met on Thursday night for a very,
Oh,
very
yeah.
different reason.
Yep.
Playing some Jackbox
Mhm.
with some friends of ours, which was very fun. It's a nice way to again get together, while we're all stuck at home. So,
Yep,
and
digitally.
I learned that I know myself very well.
You know yourself very
or
well. You know other
or
people
I
well
know
too.
how other people see me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that was a good time.
Yep. Those games can be fun, particularly with a sizable group,
Yes,
sometimes
yes.
just yeah.
And I thought it worked pretty well. I mean, it's, obviously a little bit easier when we're all in the same room, but,
Yeah.
Google Hangout did a serviceable job of connecting us and allowing us to play the game. So, that
Yep.
was fun.
We maxed it out. I was gonna try to do a separate feed for Ashley and I, so we'd be a little bigger in
Um,
frame. and
Sure.
we were at our max allowed to the call.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yep.
so yep.
Yeah. Chris and I were able to sneak in there each, but maybe next time we'll have to be a duo.
Yeah, not too big a deal as long as you see a person a little bit. It's helpful. It's nice.
Right.
So yeah, no, that was great. I look forward to that again.
Mhm.
Um, I see you have a pretty big important thing that was yesterday. That's
Yes.
crazy.
I know, right? I'm glad that I didn't know this yesterday, but I was actually doing this yesterday, so celebrated unknowingly. Yesterday was National Whiskey Day.
Woo!
So, woo! My drink of choice for certain. Um, so yeah, so I've got little whiskey in a tumbler here. It's not my
Nice.
favorite whiskey. It's not Crown. It's not Chris's favorite whiskey, JMO.
Ah,
It is. I love
I
your
just
face when I
you
do
like
that.
cringed everywhere. All right.
um, all right, no, it's not Chris's favorite whiskey, Jameson. It is actually a 150-year-old Canadian Windsor
Oh,
that
interesting.
Chris and his siblings found while digging through some of his family stuff, like
Wow.
his parents' house, which we cleaned out. Um, so yeah, we have it
Wow, I
and
wish
we drink
I'd found something better than like
it.
some sort of schnapps and, never been heard of brands of, yeah, I don't know. Okay. Huh.
Yeah, it was kind of our golden find,
Sure.
since there were many other, you know, not so great finds.
I was gonna like comment on your delicate pour there, but
I know
it's the
because we
bendier.
don't well, it is spendier. We don't have a lot of it left.
Hmm.
So I didn't want to like deprive Chris of also
Yeah.
having a sip of whiskey. So
Yeah.
we're sharing.
It's one of the best things. You can never have too much whiskey because it just lasts,
Mhm.
and you can savor it in little bits and pieces.
Yeah,
So
it's quite good, I have to
awesome.
say. Windsor's not usually my favorite. Obviously, like updated Windsor isn't my usual drink of choice, but this is very smooth.
Nice. Well, you never know what my drink of choice is. It's in
I know.
a
I was gonna comment on your awesome mug there.
C3PO mug. Yeah. So this is a true Star Wars thing. True in the sense that it's not. I didn't go and get it at Target yesterday. I bought this when I was a kid, um, 1996,
Oh, cool.
and I barely use it. It's just like special occasion or something. So
Nostalgia. What you got in it?
it's just another beer. I'm not
Okay.
like I'm really glad you're servicing our namesake well, because I've been a poor participant in that matter. So
You've been going beer heavy lately.
I have been, I don't know. It's like, I'll get far enough into this and have to like deal with the struggle. I will have to
Mhm.
leave and pour myself some whiskey or something. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
tough. I mean, normally this time of year, I feel like I would be getting more into beers as well, just because it's like the beginning of spring,
sure.
patio season, like going out to the breweries.
Yep.
That's what I feel like I'd normally be doing.
Yep.
But since we're not doing that so much right now,
Hmm.
it's yeah, I haven't been quite as obsessed with like what latest
Yep.
beer trends are. So,
Our local brewery is they're doing their best. They had like their door open the other day when it was really nice, and they have big sign that says growlers to go,
oh yeah,
and
okay,
then they still have two food trucks outside.
sure.
So they're
Yeah,
trying.
I noticed, some of the breweries around here are doing drive-up windows
Hmm.
or, opening their doors and having growlers for sale, stuff like that. They're trying. I mean,
Yep.
you gotta do what you gotta do, and hopefully we can get out and support them a little bit.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, we don't want to delay too long. You got a couple news things here before we dive deep into the Star Wars.
Yes.
Um, I just noticed that the Banker movie is on Apple TV Plus. Came
Mhm.
out the other week. Samuel L. Jackson stars, as does
Anthony Mackie.
and no idea if it's good. No idea if people like it or not. But
Mhm.
some big names in a new movie for Apple TV Plus, so
Right, right.
something to check out.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie's riding a high wave right now,
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
you
I
know?
never
He's certainly
loved.
busy.
Yeah, I never I thought it was underutilized and not overly developed in the Marvel movies
Mhm.
as Falcon and stuff.
Right.
So if you can get some other roles to shine, that'd be good.
Well, and it kinda gets his name out there before Falcon and Winter Soldier
Yep. Hmm.
is officially released, so, hopefully driving traffic that way.
Yep.
I have to say I've been more impressed with his performance in Altered Carbon than I ever was in the Marvel universe, but I think that's because you're right, he was pretty underutilized.
Hmm.
So you just didn't get to see a lot. But I mean, how can you? There's how many Marvel
Yeah.
characters and they all need screen time and
Yep.
you've got your clear stars, the clear core of the Avengers. So,
I
yeah.
hope I hope that I don't know that I'm necessarily a fan of him becoming Captain America, but I am
Yeah.
excited for his show with Winter Soldier. I
Yeah.
think that those two could be good together, and that could be fun.
Mhm. Yeah, it's tough, seeing another character take over a role. I think it's gonna
Mhm.
be tough to see him be Captain America. I don't know how I feel about it, and I also even though I'm excited, I don't necessarily know how I feel about Natalie Portman being Thor
Sure.
because I'm so just, like, with Chris Hemsworth as
Yep.
Thor, so it's
Mhm.
just tough. So, I mean, I hope it's great, I hope I love it, but it's
I'll
also, how does that
yeah.
go?
I don't know if they're hot takes or not, but I'll put myself out there and say on those two instances, the
Sure.
with uh I know someone that is just a YouTuber, but he's not he's not a big fan of taking a character like Falcon that's an original black character and then making him this traditionally white character. To him, it cheapens the uh the importance of that character. You know, you have a
Yeah,
character Falcon
sure.
who's actually written an original black character, and they're always talking about wanting extra diversity, and they're just kind of throwing that aside. Now it's the same
Mhm.
person, but you're taking over this other person's role, and I tend to agree. It's like just you got a lot of choices here in in quality characters that you could showcase and use
Mhm.
instead of making them just like a showpiece
Sure.
for diversity's sake. Um,
Sure. Yeah, I guess I would tangentially agree with that. Um, I don't necessarily know that I would object, if Captain America needs some turnover per se,
mhm,
because comics do that. I mean, they
mhm,
have characters like cycle through, and different people are different iconic, superheroes. I wouldn't necessarily like be opposed to a black Captain America, but I don't necessarily see why it needs to be Falcon. Do you
sure.
know what I mean? Like Falcon
Hmm.
has to disappear into Captain America. Why
Yep.
can't we coexist and
Right.
Falcon is still Falcon? Somebody new comes along and is Captain America. Maybe they're black, maybe they're Asian, maybe they're white, who knows?
Mhm.
But, you know.
I'm of the opinion too. We don't always need to replace them all. Like we don't
Yeah.
need a new Iron Man. We don't
Yeah.
need a new whoever it goes and is here and not here the next day. Like characters for weight need to move on, need to die, need to different stuff. And so we don't need I know the idea is, well, we need to sell toys to kids. And if there isn't this character, then how can we sell those toys? Well,
Sure.
those other movies still exist. You know how kids are. They watch the same movie that they love over and over and over and over again ad nauseum. So I don't necessarily buy that. I think you'd
Sure.
owe it to the material and to what to some like I don't know, um literary honesty to have your characters have a beginning and an end or whatever.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah, well, And I think you could argue that it does a bit of a disservice to creativity in a way if
Hmm.
kind of recycling characters.
Yep.
And, are you ever really going to think of anything new? You're just like continuing one long arc and
Right.
basing it, in something that's already been created. Why not try something new? Why not create brand
Yep.
new
And
characters?
it loses value. You know, like well, I watched Bleach, the anime, a lot of it. It
Mhm.
goes on forever and ever and ever. And it starts losing meaning because you can only have your person face down the ultimate end and the ultimate threat so many times before
Right.
it's not impactful anymore, and there's
Right.
ultimately no consequences.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, if people
yeah.
keep dying and coming back to life, like, what are the
Yep.
stakes even then,
Yep.
ever?
And with
Which I think
Thor,
a lot of other TV shows have, like, had issues with as well.
yep. And with Thor, I think that it's so I'm of two minds about it. Um, the negative is I don't know of anyone that in any number loved in the comics when uh shoot, what's her name? What's the
Jane
character?
Foster.
Yeah, when she became Thor,
Mhm.
it wasn't well received, and they went back to regular Thor pretty quickly. And then they tried to like do different things. Then she became like Valkyrie, and just all over the board. Um, so it seems weird that they're gonna bring that into the movies that was so poorly received. But
Yes.
Taika Waititi's run doing it, so
I know. I know, I'm in the exact same position you are. I'm really excited. Taika Waititi is awesome, and he's done some great things, but
mhm.
yes, do I necessarily like the idea of Jane Foster as Thor? Not right now.
Mhm. So,
I mean, change my
maybe you
mind.
can convince me exactly, and, Natalie Portman's a great actress, so, I
Mhm.
mean, I know that she'll do well in whatever they give her, you know?
Yeah, and I'm hoping for a redemption of Jane Foster as a character because I mean, she just kind of faded away after
Yep.
movie 2, in
Mhm.
which I didn't really like her utilization anyway, and then she was just like a nothing in 3, which I think was fine. They needed a break because they weren't going anywhere with her character, but
Right. Mhm.
it's just
Yep.
sad that she sort of faded and now she's back. So hopefully it'll be in a good way.
Yep. Yep. Well, that's a tangent.
Yep.
So you have one other news story
Oh yeah.
or
I was really
something.
excited to see that upcoming in a couple days here on April 2nd, coming to Netflix is New Violet Evergarden, which is an anime that I absolutely loved. I thought it was fantastic. Um, so they're going to be releasing another season of that called Eternity in Auto. And I have
Cool.
no idea what it's about. I have no idea
Okay.
why it's named that.
Okay.
Um, but just caught a glimpse of it in the news this week and was just really excited. For
Nice.
anybody who has not seen Violet Evergarden, go see it. It's fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't finished season 1, but it's beautiful. It's definitely
Yes.
a really beautiful anime.
And
And
it's a wonderful story. Like it wraps up very well.
nice. Great. Yeah, I didn't know where it was gonna go, but that's good to know that it's
Yeah, I would
satisfying.
definitely say finish it.
Cool.
It's satisfying in a way that leaves just a little bit open so that they can do things like this now.
Okay.
Um, but not in a like gaping, we're missing something huge kind of way.
Yep.
So
Well, that reminded me, I guess I'll throw it in. There's fall is the anime called Burn the Witch coming. I just saw that
Ooh,
yesterday. Um
what is this?
yeah, it's so Bleach, as I mentioned before, that's celebrating, I
Right.
think its 20th anniversary. And the
Okay.
author, the writer, creator, whatever of that, uh, I'll butcher his name. I won't say it. I vaguely remember it, but it's um, it's by him, and
Okay.
there's a free preview manga on Shonen Jump's app. I think it's free. I read it last night, and there's a trailer for the anime out. Um,
Nice.
I'm not convinced yet, but
Okay.
maybe. The general idea is that there's a like reverse London that is, dragons have been around for a long time, and this is other society that basically deals with like maintaining dragon populations and like keeping them out of
Mm,
contact with humans and stuff.
okay.
Um, it's it has Harry Potter vibes in a number of ways. I but I like the art, so we'll
Okay.
see.
Can you tell from the trailer, is it like just dragons that are like mystical characters introduced? Like, I mean, the show's called Burn the Witch, so I'm
Yeah, I mean,
assuming
they're witches and
witches.
wizards that manage this. They're run
Okay.
in
All right.
the
Got it.
bureau that deals with them. Yep.
Okay.
So they all have different roles and kind of responsibilities. And our two main characters, the one wants to not do the regular kind of things they do. Like they were sent on a mission in the preview to like they use different dragons for all different things. Like there's dragons that generate electricity, basically. It's like Flintstones, dinosaurs that have roles. There's
Oh,
all
I
these
gotcha.
like a variety
Okay.
of different dragons. Some have like they grow rocks on their backs so that people mine, like so the dragons are used for
Mm,
different things as well.
okay.
So they had to go
Okay.
like to this certain region and get grapes that grow off of this one dragon or something. And they're like, then the one which is like, this is so boring. I want to be in the one that exterminates dragons or whatever,
Oh,
and do more exciting jobs. So
okay.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
Just it's I enjoyed a lot of Bleach while it was a thing, and
Mhm.
so I'm it that warrants me at least taking a look at this.
Sure. Yeah, I liked Bleach. I have watched some of Bleach, not all. I liked Bleach for a while as well, but it's very daunting to try and catch up.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't want to try. Mhm.
yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah. Yep. It does some stuff really well, but
Mhm.
it's as I mentioned before with the kind of losing value after a time. So,
Right.
all right. I don't know how long that was, but that's our quick news segment. Here now we got to talk about Star Wars. Everything Star Wars.
Obviously.
So, I hadn't really kept any notes, but we should like start with the basics of
Okay.
like what is your order in which you watch Star Wars? And
Yes.
you should watch Star Wars. What order did you watch Star Wars?
Okay.
And how do you recommend people watch Star Wars?
Okay. So yeah, so we're continuing on from
Yeah.
our brief discussion last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I threw up a Twitter poll on our account um because I we obviously disagreed last week. So I wanted to know what everybody thought. And it was tied until you voted. And so I'm going to go vote later and tie it back up because everybody seems to be very split between whether you should start with episode 1 or episode 4,
hmm
which I
hmm
think are really the only two places that you can arguably start.
Yeah, I would think
I
so.
mean, I think we can at least agree on that.
Uh-huh.
So I'm an episode 4 person. I think you need to watch how they were filmed rather than like the order of what's happening within the world.
Okay.
Um, so and that is the way that I started. I actually did not watch them at home first. They were re-released into movie theaters in the 90s, and my dad took me to go see those in the theater in sequential order.
Sure.
And so I've always been able to watch Star Wars, like whatever movie is being released in the theater first. So I've always had that sort of like cinematic attachment to Star
Nice.
Wars. And that's the way that I recommend seeing them.
Okay.
I probably biased a little bit,
hmm
but also I think because, well, for a variety of different reasons. One being that's the way that Lucas made them. You know,
hmm
he didn't start with 1, he started with 4, and he didn't really like, intend it to be in episode 4 even at first. It was just supposed to be like Star Wars, and then he
hmm
like threw the episode on there like as an homage to earlier serial films. So I just sort of feel like, yeah, like I can go for what Lucas was trying to do in the beginning.
hmm
And then also I would recommend starting with 4 because I think that's the best trilogy, and why not start off with, like, the best?
Okay.
And be introduced into that world, and it's so iconic. It's such a part of our culture, even if, like, the newer ones aren't as much, like, everybody knows references from the older ones, even if they don't know what they're referencing, and it's
Hmm.
such a part of, like, our culture, it's such a part of our lexicon, and again, like, I think the stories are the best, so start there.
Sure. So,
Fight me, John.
yeah, I'm not as like I'm not as strict one way or another as I put
Sure.
on. I mean, so the reason so I'll address one thing with the I would say not intending to be a series. To my understanding, a lot of that was he didn't know how many movies he could get, you know.
Right.
He wanted a bunch, because he has
Mhm.
this sprawling story, but how many are they going to give me? And then they end up coming and telling me like you get this one or whatever, and then it's a success, and so you get more, But
Right.
it's like I got to tell the part that I can and really want to have out there because I don't know that I'm going to ever get to make all explain all the rest.
Right.
Um, I understand starting with episode 4 because of the just some of the reveals are impressive then. Like I
Mhm.
respect that where if you're, first time, I am your father kind of thing, that's big. And also the view of Vader, the way you see Vader, if you start with episode 4, is a very different way than if you start with episode 1.
Mhm.
And so it depends on the kind of effect you're looking for. They are
Mhm.
impactful in different ways. And then the other thing I would say is the way that um, um, it depends on who is watching this for the first time. Like if you're a child,
Sure.
or if you're an adolescent, or if you're an adult. So if you're a child, that's where I feel most strongly that you should start with episode 1. Um,
Sure. Okay.
and it's you can have the kid to connect with or whatever, if you're a kid there, you won't care about the goofy stuff, you won't care about Jar Jar, you're not going to notice the horrendous love lines in episode 2, that kind of thing. So I'm more of a I think I think also you start there, and that is a good bridge then for you to immediately go into the Clone Wars. So if you watch episode 2, then you can be
Oh, I
given the
see.
Clone Wars cartoon. Go and watch this, and
Sure.
it's hours of entertainment, and they're hooked at that point. If you're an adolescent, I remember showing kids in high school who had never seen Star Wars. No, like for me, I was about the only Star Wars fan in my high school for a while.
Sure.
And then so when I eventually showed some other kids, the big thing was, oh, that looks so unrealistic in the original trilogy. Oh, it looks so
Mhm.
fake. So as bad as some of the acting is in the prequel trilogy, the effects are better, I guess, and some kids like lightsabers and stuff. So I think it was an easier sell for them
Sure.
than the little more mature, even pace of episode 4.
Mhm.
And if you're an adult, do what you want. Like I would still suggest starting with episode 1, but if you start with episode 4 for other reasons, I would understand. So.
See, yeah, I feel like I like so I rewatch Star Wars, because who doesn't? I mean,
Hmm.
it's fabulous. So I can rewatch Star Wars from a standpoint of, like, going from episode 1 on through, and it's kind of fun to do that for me.
Hmm.
Um, like, just to get the story, like, in that sort of chronological verse order.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, introducing somebody new, I just feel like it has to, like, come from 4. Um, 'Cause I don't think it is as an adult, it's easy to fall in love with the first trilogy,
Hmm. Right.
and I think it would be really tough to, like, continue on because as an adult, I think you do look for the story,
Hmm. The
and
thing
I think it would
is,
be really tough.
I hope.
Especially to just Hayden Christensen. Oh.
I think, see, my thing is I hope that as an adult you have seen Star Wars already as a
But we were
child.
just talking about my friend
I
last
know.
week who
And
hasn't.
that's nuts.
And how could I introduce him to Star Wars, so
So
iconic and so amazing,
right,
through
right,
episode 1?
right. So I will understand more for him
Mhm,
if you had, like, you sat him down and that's how you tackled it. When I think about it most of the time, I'm like, when would you introduce your kids to Star Wars?
yeah,
Like at what point? And I hope that's how most people do it, because Star Wars has a lot of problems, but I think it does very well what few things do, and that it can open your imagination really effectively.
mhm,
And so if you get that as a child, it can be a lifelong bit of like creativity and whatever that it inspires. And so
mhm.
start them early, start them young, start them with episode one.
I agree with 2/3 of that statement.
So
I
if you
can't I
had a
just
4-year-old, you would make him watch episode 4 first.
I don't know that my 4-year-old would maybe be watching Star Wars quite yet.
Okay, 5.
I would probably yeah, I'd probably wait till, like, 5 or 6, school age. And yeah, I would start him with episode 4 for sure. I think I can definitely see your point about, like, a kid relating to a child protagonist. And, starting episode 1 that way, and that sort of like, you know, episode 1 does feel a little childlike and very, like, you know, full of wonder. I think probably because the people who worked on it, and this is my speculation, and certainly probably not all of it, but because technology did catch up to what they wanted to do and what they wanted to show of the Star Wars universe. So I think there is a lot of like color explosion and look at these like cool things and alien races that we can create, and we can do this pod race, even though I find it ridiculous as an adult. Like, I get that a kid would be like, wow, this is amazing.
Sure.
So I do feel that sense of like wonder in the first one. I think it's a little overshadowed by an excess of it. I feel like it's a little bit too much that they're wandering into the weeds of like, look at the world we can create instead of look at the story we can tell.
Mhm.
But I still like the way that the entire universe is introduced through episode 4, and I feel like you sort of need that identification with Luke and with Leia and Han and Chewie to then I don't know, to see them, like, in the way that they need to be seen, which is as the protagonists, because I think you wander into a dark path if you, like, start a child off being like, "Look at this cute little kid, and don't you identify with him?" And then all of a sudden he's like Darth Vader.
But it's a great lesson,
It
it's
is, but, like, what 5-year-old is gonna learn that lesson?
I know, but
I
they
think it's a
won't.
little
Yeah.
bit too
Yeah,
complex.
and yeah, it's,
So, yeah, so I think I would probably introduce them to the originals first, and if they end up liking it another way, that's fine. If they,
mhm.
if they would rather in the future watch from 1 and they identify with it, I get it, but
Yep.
I can try.
Yep. Yep. You can try it. When they don't like episode 4, then you give them episode 1. "Alright, fine, you watch this." Um,
See how you like it.
yeah. It's yeah. When so you first saw Star Wars in when they re-released the original
Mhm.
trilogy in the theater, okay. The
Yes.
first movie I saw was, Empire Strikes Back, episode 5,
Really?
and it was on just VHS. It came out, um, I remember the advertisements. It was, uh, like before, you could only see it or whatever on the big screen, and then it would
Yeah.
go in and show it on your TV or something like that. And I don't know how it went, but like, my parents never were really into Star Wars a lot.
Mhm.
They saw it in theater. They remember the hub, the big lines and stuff.
Sure.
So they bought the box set, and I don't know, I just like
Yes,
the
I
cover or
definitely had
something.
that box set.
I just like the cover or whatever of it,
Okay.
and so I watched, so I saw the original Star Wars trilogy and the original versions of them first,
Okay.
at home. I think I did, like, episodes 5, then 6, then 4, or something weird like that, but as a kid, I didn't know or care, you know?
Sure.
Um, and then eventually when they came out were re-released, the special editions in the theater, then I went and saw those then
Sure.
too, of course,
Okay.
so
So you've seen all the movies theatrically as well then?
I have not seen,
Mm. Oh, no, you
Solo,
haven't.
theatrical, a Solo movie, and I have
Right.
not seen,
Plus
yeah,
Rise.
episode, 9 theatrically.
Right.
All the other ones I
Right.
have. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what's your order? What's your order of favorites to least favorite, and
Okay, I
why?
gotta get this, like, back up because now I gotta remember. There's so
I
many of them.
Alright, I'll run down mine, and
Okay.
they fluctuate. You know, it's
Yeah, no, I know we were talking about this earlier. There's
yeah.
some that I think you can arguably go one way or the other in a ranking order.
So, best to worst, episode
Okay.
5, Empire Strikes Back, episode 6, Return of the Jedi,
Oh, okay.
Rogue One, episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, episode 4, A New Hope, episode 1, Phantom Menace, episode and then Solo movie,
Oh, okay.
then episode 2, then episode 7, and then 9, and then 8.
Okay. So you are really not a fan of 7 through 9.
Really not
You
a fan.
really hate
The
it.
7 7 so and this is where it changes. 7 as a movie is pretty good. Like as a standalone entity, if that was the first Star Wars movie ever made, I think that's cool.
Yeah,
There's real
okay.
potential there. It was a good balance of practical and special effects. John Williams soundtrack is still amazing. I'm wearing Ray hair. I had like high hopes for Ray,
Yeah.
like Kylo Ren, some of that stuff. Snoke was an interesting character, but in the larger context of the Star Wars universe, it was a retelling of episode 4. Too much, way too much. I mean,
Yep.
it's Star Wars already had the problem of episode 4 was the Death Star, and no, we're going to do it again. And so that's we have in episode 6. That's already an
Mhm.
issue. So then to go further and do it again, um, it's lazy beyond belief. So if you hadn't seen A New Hope since the theaters, I'm sure you'd like uh episode 7, because it bring back
Yeah.
nostalgia, bring back some memories. It'd be like, oh, it feel very Star Wars to you.
Yes.
But if you're familiar with them in any meaningful way, like you don't mess up Star Wars and Star Trek, then it was just a repeat, and kind of inexcusable. And I will say
Yeah.
one other thing quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Um, it's crud, what was I gonna say?
Sorry.
One other thing quickly. Oh my god. It's
Episode 7.
yeah. I'll let you go. I'll come back to it.
Okay, I was just gonna say I have 7 a little bit higher than you, not much. Um, but I think part of it is because it does pull me with that nostalgia. And I think it's funny, both of our ranking systems start with the one that we've seen first.
Sure.
Um,
Yep.
whether consciously or unconsciously influenced, I think
Hmm.
the first one does have a lot of impact on you. Um, so mine starts with 4, A New Hope. Just because I mean, for me, I just can't not love anything that's the first, that's the original, that's the birth of everything. Like,
Okay. It's the
it's
most
wonderful.
important.
It's yeah, it's I mean, it introduces everything. It sets
Yeah.
everything up, and I think it's certainly well done in the sense of it being a complete movie should Lucas not get anything else.
Yep.
It sort of wraps things up well. Fortunately, he did get more, obviously, but yeah, I love the original. And then I have Empire Strikes Back for the story. Then I have Rogue One, actually, because I love detail stories, and I think
Hmm.
this was so well done, and I love, like, that there's so much gravity in it, that, like, all of this movie is set up to get Leia the plans for the Death Star, and I just, like, I love that kind of stuff. I love that it shows, like, the importance of, the original trilogy in, like, what she's going to do, what they're trying to do, but it also, like, introduces the gravity of that cost, and
So
it tells it in a really small and broad scale way. So I love that.
I'll use that as my first show and tell before you
Ooh,
continue on to your next pick. Or I suppose I've showed
show and
lightsaber
tell.
and the C3PO mug. But so this here is a Dark
Ooh,
Forces, Star Wars Dark Forces game box for I had
nice.
this game for Mac.
Mhm.
Um, I played games on my Mac back as a kid, and there's a uh, comic book novel to this and stuff or whatever. It's dealing with the character Kyle Katarn. And really, this is what Rogue One is, this game and everything. And so this shows you, and I'm going to use this as my proof of point here, proof
Sure.
positive, that I am not solely bitter because something isn't exactly the way I want it to be.
Sure.
Because
Okay.
I have a lot of Star Wars hate right now, and I Rogue One is my third. It could be third or fourth favorite film. It's a little iffy, but
Yeah.
that movie
Yeah.
basically takes Kyle Katarn, an awesome character, and splits him into two people.
Mhm.
Splits them into two people, and then kills them both. Um, so I have big problems with that in the sense that Kyle Katarn's great. He would have been great in canon. It would have been nice to have him there and to be another thing they could just keep from the expanding universe,
Right.
and it would be awesome. But they didn't, and they made this other movie, and it was great regardless.
Right.
So that's
So,
just
yeah, they can be forgiven if it's great cinema,
yeah,
not so
you
much
right.
when it isn't.
Right. They can take things. I am willing to bend when, it's because I've read dozens of Star Wars books, and now
Right.
almost all of them are not official. They don't count. So, like, I could be extra bitter about that. It's not that, it's the particulars, that
Yes.
they fail to tell something cohesive otherwise. So, all right, that's my Rogue One, Dark Forces show and tell.
All right. So after Rogue One, which I believe is my third, I have Revenge of the Sith, and then I have Return of the Jedi. Then I have Force Awakens, so seven, Attack of the Clones, Last Jedi, then Solo, then Rise of Skywalker, and then I have Phantom Menace.
Okay. So how could you start with the worst movie? Because it only
I
goes up
know.
from there, right? So
I
that's it.
know. I just
So,
I have a lot of problems with Phantom Menace, and it isn't to add to your point of, like, it's not just one thing that sticks with me, like, it's not just Jar Jar Binks.
mhm,
Obviously, everybody has problems with that, like,
mhm,
I get it. It's annoying. Um, although he doesn't, like, become, to me, the worst until later. But like I said earlier, I find that that movie is just too much. There's too much excess, there's too much, "Look at what we can do."
okay,
And even though I feel like there are great grounding performances, from Liam Neeson, from Ewan McGregor, like, their Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan, like, I love that sort of, like, brief taste of the bromance that we get with them, and then, like, it's sadly, tragically ripped away. I love that, but I just don't think it's enough to overcome, like, so much of the movie's shortcomings.
okay. When was the last
So
time you watched it?
Phantom Menace?
Yeah.
Oh god, it's been a long time, I will not lie.
So you should try it
I would
again.
s I would say it's not since, like, I first saw it, I've seen it multiple
Mhm,
times. I would say probably at least 6 years.
okay. Yeah, I would try it again because, um so another thing I'll say as a, like, disclaimer, um, every Star Wars movie I've ever watched in the theater, I have loved the first time I saw it. All of
Mm,
them.
mhm.
Every time, because
Yeah,
there's so much hype around it. I get so excited. I see the movie in the theater and I leave excited. Every one of them. Even The Last Jedi. The test is, like,
same.
okay, what do you think the next day? And then what do you think the next time you watch it?
Yeah.
And so I can kind of sober up, come down from that, and then
Mhm.
I decide. So,
Yeah. I think it's easy in the movie theater to get caught up in the story and get excited about, like, everything that you're seeing and, like, look at
mhm,
what's new and, you see it's like there's sort of a golden haze over everything where it, like, looks wonderful and,
yep.
you know, you're just
And Star
excited for
Wars,
Star Wars.
right.
But then yeah.
The mainline movies have never been in like a, you know, initially brain activated kind of thing. Like it's the beginning of the summer popcorn flick. The pacing and understanding what we have of modern cinema is thanks to Star Wars. And so you sit down and enjoy the ride, you know.
Yes.
And so I will say, with that, I guess that, um, the if you're that summer popcorn moviegoer, if you're a casual fan, I can definitely understand people having a higher ranking or opinion of the last trilogy, the newest
Mhm.
trilogy.
Yeah.
Again, if you're a person that, but they make those memes of that says, Gandalf walked right into the Death Star and he told Picard, you better, you know, and he said Expelliarmus, and
Yeah, right.
and if you're that kind of person where it's a casual thing, you go to be entertained for 2 hours and then you're done with it. I definitely can see people like even the last one now, Rise of Skywalker, being just fine.
I I wanna say I can see that, and totally see where you're coming from. To me, even as somebody just as a moviegoer, if I try to even put myself in just a moviegoer's shoes,
Mhm.
I'm mad because there are just so many story inconsistencies and there's
Oh,
so
yeah.
much just like randomly jammed in there that I
Yeah.
just feel like it's also bad filmmaking. There are cool parts for
Right.
sure. And
Yes.
like as a casual moviegoer, I could be like, I love that scene. I love this particular plot point, but I don't
Mhm.
love the plot and I don't love the just like magic fix it that we did with
Yep.
some things. So,
And yeah, I mean, I hate the I mean, a lot of big movies though aren't super buttoned up. They're messy,
no,
and
no, but I just feel like this was just particularly obvious how
mhm.
messy,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we've talked about it before, like, it's the problem of different directors having very different visions and then just going ahead and making those movies without, any sort of, we need some continuity
Yep.
here. Like, I don't know who wasn't overseeing anything, but yeah.
So, right, if you look at like an outline of Star Wars, of the movies, and you see, okay, so the first trilogy is about a boy that has is thrust into this position. He's told he has a destiny, and war breaks out, and life gets tough, and this kid uh, falls for the wrong ideals in order to
Mhm,
try to save someone he loves, and ends up like largely being enslaved to a terrible life, um, and kills lots of people.
mhm,
Um, and the next trilogy is about his heir, his son, that finds out he has a destiny as well, must face
mhm,
his familial dark side and right the wrongs of the father and bring peace back to the galaxy. Now, the
mhm.
third trilogy sets us back
Is
to where the
what?
beginning of the previous trilogy of the original.
Yeah.
So essentially, peace has not been brought to the galaxy. The evil force we thought we had rid of has not happened. The
Sort of.
here sort of the hero and savior of the galaxy is not our hero and savior, or someone to look up to. And we have to do this all over again. But this time, we're not going to earn it because we didn't spend 3 films building to that, working
Mhm.
on that. We like stumbled our way through, and then a new chosen one just walked up to the most powerful being in the universe and killed him for another time. Like,
Yeah.
it's so sad and pathetic. I As a nerd, I'm enraged at the sloppiness that
Yeah.
these multi-million dollar companies, these millionaire writers and directors can't come up with a decent story to a 30, 40 plus year old franchise to save their lives. And
Mhm.
it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
I I absolutely agree. And to to put I think a broader viewpoint that I was thinking of when I was watching these movies. I like the way that you summed up, kind of each of the trilogies at, at their main conflict. And I think even to put it at a broader level, the first trilogy is, you take a powerful being in the force and you see what happens when they choose dark.
Mhm,
The second trilogy, you take another powerful force, you see what happens when they choose light and
mhm,
can help others find the light as well. What I thought was really interesting, where I'd sort of been excited initially um, about the third trilogy, is having two beings, Kylo Ren and
mhm,
Rey, and having them be this force dyad and sort of like that balance of dark and light that I was sort of excited that we were hopefully going to find.
mhm.
Like seeing, because I feel like the a lot of the issue in the first trilogy is, Anakin Skywalker is stuck between this force of great evil, the Sith, and this fourth force of great light, the Jedi. But the Jedi are so unyielding. They don't There's only light, there's no gray,
Yep.
you can't have this balance,
Mhm.
exist within yourself. They can be a balancing force against the dark of the Sith, but individual people shouldn't have that sort of
Right.
like, sometimes I have bad thoughts, or sometimes, I don't always make the right choice, but I can keep
Mhm,
trying. So it's so unrealistic. The
mhm,
second one sort of moves that forward in the sense of somebody who chooses dark can be redeemed, somebody who chooses light can be disappointed, but ultimately still, you know, have that faith and have that faith be rewarded by choosing the light.
mhm,
The third one, it got more individual, it got more personal, and we didn't have these like very um you know, cookie cutter heroes. It seemed like at first. And then everything just got like messed up and they were like, "Oh, you're a dyad. Too bad we don't care. We're just going to like rip it away. We're not going to explain it anymore. Like, we needed you to defeat Palpatine and that was like basically the only thing we needed you for."
yep.
So, yeah. I thought it
The
was like this really cool concept in the first one and then I was just like, "I'm done."
If we take your breakdown of the first 2 trilogies,
Mhm.
the what I think is a meaningful, like, continuation for a 3rd trilogy is what happened in the expanded universe.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
when you have like, talk about, like, the Jedi being overbearing, not have you can't have relationships, this kinda thing where and also where they're becoming involved in the politics of the world, they're becoming enforcers, generals in a war, all
Mhm.
kinds of this stuff that, they do Luke does address concerns with that in the last trilogy,
Yeah.
but it was done in a really weird, kind of bitter old man sort of way.
Mhm.
Um, in the expanded universe, the stuff that was written, Luke does start his own Jedi Academy, start over.
Mhm.
He does fall in love because he wasn't trained. I mean, yeah, he was trained by Yoda and stuff and Obi-Wan, but they learn the error of their ways,
Right.
that the Jedi Order and the structure of the Jedi Council was probably not the way to do things. Kidnapping children from their parents as infants when they're force sensitive and forcing them to be trained as Jedi is maybe not the right path. So they learn those things. That stuff didn't get passed on to Luke. So
Mhm.
Luke had a more tempered view of the Jedi code and the Jedi way.
Right.
And so he had his wife and his child and his academy, what became a much more gray Jedi sort of an ideal that was spread.
And I
And
wish we could have seen that on the screen.
right. Now, the one of the concerns with like taking like the stuff that was adapted in from the expanded universe and making in the movies is that, well, look at all this time that has passed, so we can't just start where the expanded universe did
Oh,
because our
sure.
actors are way older. But there's this book right here.
Mhm.
And I took the dust sleeve off
Show
of it.
and tell, show
Yeah.
and tell.
So I'm reading these now as it was a gift from, I think, my sister.
Mhm,
And a lot of people think this is what they should have done, and it would have made things pretty easy on themselves. And I
mhm.
guarantee you, most people have not read this. So I'm just going to read everyone the very uh, inside bit. It's sort of this. So I think people also fail to realize that all these like multitude of comic books and novels that were written for Star Wars, they all had to fit in a timeline. Like they
Mhm,
all had their own like after the Battle of Yavin and before the Battle of Yavin dates, and they all had to fit. So like it
mhm.
worked. This is the beginning of this book, this comic. After the
Okay.
death of Emperor Palpatine, the defeated Imperial forces pulled back to Bastion, near the unknown regions, and called a truce with the New Republic. The Jedi, under Luke Skywalker, again became agents of peace across the galaxy. That peace was shattered by an invasion of fanatical extragalactic aliens called the Yuuzhan Vong. These far outsiders killed trillions and devastated worlds, taking Coruscant itself and fracturing the New Republic. A galactic alliance of remaining systems, Jedi, and the Imperial remnant finally defeated the invaders, exiling them to the living planet Zonama Sekat. Meanwhile, a new breed of Sith, a legion led by Darth Krayt, kept patient watch. Emerging from hiding on the planet Korriban, the Sith formed an alliance with the newly reforged Empire. Together, they manufactured an incident that sundered the Galactic Alliance and began a brutal war. The Jedi were defeated and scattered, but the name Skywalker is still a legacy of hope in a galaxy of darkness. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in the interim here that
Right.
went over. Um, that was our time pass. That's our realistic time pass. So this takes place now with a descendant of Luke Skywalker that really doesn't want anything to do with that legacy. So this is called Star Wars
Mhm,
Legacy.
mhm.
Um, but the decision will be, do I have, am I going to take up this mantle and whatever? So you're dealing within this Luke's Force ghost, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it would not only allow you a relative fresh start because so much time has passed and so much has changed, um, whilst still like adhering to a lot of logical things that have been written for Star Wars in the last
Mhm.
couple decades.
Yeah, and I feel like this was almost an attempt at that. I mean, the 7 through 9, I mean. Um, because obviously, like you said, you can't start right away from where the original trilogy dropped off because,
Hmm.
you know, obviously Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher are so much older.
Yep.
But we could have maybe seen some flashbacks. I mean, we did,
Yep.
in Last Jedi, we saw flashbacks of Luke at his academy, and it really, like, I was just really disappointed to feel like Luke hadn't learned a lesson. Luke
Right.
hadn't changed that much. And it just felt really weird that and really out of character for what was happening um in all of that. And I don't know. I expressed my disappointment. I think I share with you that Star Wars in 7 through 9 didn't seem to have evolved anywhere
Right.
and didn't
Yep.
take us anywhere new.
Yep.
And there was definitely possibility for that and it got squandered.
Yep. I mean, you know, a lot of what worked for the original trilogy, other than the world building, was the love of these characters. You know,
Mhm.
you've got a core group of characters that had a good dynamic going amongst each other, and they ruined those characters. So
Yes.
when you start a new trilogy, like more could be forgiven if you didn't destroy these characters.
Yes.
So Luke Skywalker, your hero. So where you
You're
where's
gonna go
Anakin?
one by one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, alright.
So Luke's whereas Anakin was an innocent boy that became a tyrant. Luke is an innocent boy that grew up and stayed with the light and became a hero. Well,
Mhm.
we find now that's not the case actually. He's a failure of a man. He has not only um, been responsible for the killing of all of his students and the turning to the dark side of a relative. He is now not only has he made those mistakes, he has now completely abandoned his family, his cause, everything he has known, and not
Mhm.
for like a couple months or a year to cool down or something or rethink things. Um, for 30 years, for like near
A
3
long time,
decades,
yeah.
he just was out, however long. He's just, "Peace, I'm gone. I'm gonna sulk on this island."
Mhm.
So, Luke Skywalker is destroyed. He is not an admirable character anymore. Han Solo, he starts a family, and when things get tough, he leaves and becomes a crappy smuggler again, apparently, that everybody's after.
Mhm.
He doesn't stick by his wife. He doesn't try to get his son back anymore. He gives up. He peace out. So Han
Mhm.
Solo is a terrible person. So his arc was meaningless, going from smuggler, I only care about myself, to like, oh, there's a
Coming
bigger
back.
picture here. I care about.
Yeah.
No, it's not on that. Chewbacca, what kind of disrespect does Han Solo show if he's basically, oh hey, yeah, here's the keys to the Falcon, new girl that I've never met before.
Right.
Um, what about Chewie? Like he doesn't,
To be fair, that's not on Chewie. You know what I
no,
mean? Like,
no, it's
everybody
not a
else,
bad
I
look.
think, like, they've made
Yes,
choices that make those characters look bad. Chewie just, like, gets the
yes,
disrespect.
yes. Yes, correct. Chewie and Lando are just massively disrespected in
Mhm.
terms of characters. They're given the shaft. Billy D. Williams, they didn't even ask to come back in this until they got desperate in the last
Yep.
movie.
Yep.
Ridiculous. Why would you not
Yep.
do that? Why would you never have any of these characters in the same room with one another? Like
Mhm.
C3PO and R2 got relegated to basically nothing, like it was
Mhm.
just they had no respect for the world or characters that had been built before.
Right.
You disagree?
Yeah, so it was tough for me, um, to see that disrespect because, again, I felt that there was potential in everything that got wasted.
Mhm.
So, like, R2D2 shutting down because Luke left. I don't blame R2D2 for that, and I thought it was really cool the way, like, BB-8, like, kind of, rediscovers him, and it was,
Sure.
like, this, like, framing shot of, like, R2D2, he's so
Yep.
iconic. It was so great, and then, like, that potential got wasted. That sort of, like, reverence that I felt in that shot, and I was so excited to see, got wasted again by his, like, secondhand, treatment in the following movies.
Mhm.
So I was disappointed in that. So going through each character, again, I see potential.
Mhm.
Like, I am absolutely disappointed with Luke's backstory. Like, there's nothing that can save that for me. The whole idea that he, like, goes off, starts a new Jedi temple, um, but without seeming having learned any of the lessons that he painfully learned in the original trilogy is just bananas to me. That he wouldn't try to make changes, that he would just, like, see Kylo Ren one day and see darkness and be like, light my lightsaber, gotta
Yeah,
kill him. Like,
right.
that is just no, like, logical choice that Luke Skywalker ever would have made. So that to me is really terrible because I think it's an interesting story had they'd gone a different direction with it. Had Luke been entrusted with his nephew, Ben Solo, and, somehow done something more minor maybe that screwed up his training, or wasn't able to convince him of something, and the dark side won him away. I think that would be a cool story, like the disappointment he would have felt with himself for letting down his sister, letting down Han Solo, is a really great motivator. I just don't like the circumstances causing it.
Hmm.
Like, I think there could have been something there that, he was trying his best, but something happened. Maybe, Kylo Ren didn't need to go full evil and kill off all of his students, but, still, like, somehow leaves, with the First Order, something happens, and now he's gotta redeem himself to his sister and to Han. Great character exploration. Like, maybe if you wanted to go that direction, that's great. Again, the circumstances I find wildly ridiculous, and that he would just, like, give up. Like, it happens, Ben Solo leaves, and then Luke doesn't even try to, like, fight to get him back, or, like, go to his sister and be like, "I messed up. Let's figure out a way to fix this." Just goes off and sulks, like you said. I
Hmm.
I couldn't even handle that. Han Solo, also disappointing that he, like you said, abandons his family. He's just like, can't hack it, you know. Um, Maybe again could have been something interesting to explore that, you know, he's I don't know, doesn't completely abandon his family, but feels displaced. He's, having a hard time adjusting to some sort of like royal palace life. But that would have made more sense if Leia stayed, kind of being a princess, but she doesn't. She, like, goes back. She's like, "The war is what I know. This is what I know how to do. I'm on the front lines." So it doesn't make sense to me how they couldn't have worked that out. Because
Hmm.
Han feels like he also belongs on the front lines. He's, doing the daring missions, like going on the rescues, gathering intelligence. Like, I felt like they could have been a dynamic pair that way.
Yep.
So his sort of like, I'm not cut out for this life, when Leia wasn't really cut out for that life, didn't make
Right.
sense to me. And so I just feel like they started going interesting directions, and they could have had more tension to explore, but these like total large breaks and fractures in the story weren't plausible to me.
It it's not, I think it's a failure of understanding what Star Wars is, you know?
Mhm.
It's a hopeful good and evil kind of fight thing.
Mhm.
It's not a heavy introspective, it's not, I understand they're probably trying to bring some sort of depth or drama to some of these characters, but there's um the
I think they
you,
just took it too far.
it took it too far.
Like,
If you want to,
they
right.
went too far in that direction.
So Luke could struggle. So say he, regardless of what happens, he has say as many students, several students,
Mhm.
and one of them, most painfully so, his relative goes to the dark side.
Mhm.
That's terrible. It also allows for a lot of drama with his other students and
Mhm. Right.
Kylo Ren. Like, come back. That's really cool fight sequences potentially. Say he is the star pupil, and what does that do to Luke's ego and his confidence? But to
Yeah.
have to rise to either like turn him back or end his life is incredibly dramatic
Mhm.
without making Luke uh bitter coward.
Right. Bitter hermit
Um,
man. Yeah.
Yeah, having to, yeah, it would be further growth, having to understand that this life comes with responsibilities and they're heavy. Whether,
Mhm.
you're going to take on this role and you're going to fail sometimes, and how do
Right.
you deal with that?
Right.
Um, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's I
Han,
think
go
oh, I
ahead.
was just gonna say quickly, I think it's more interesting if, Luke, having done something so great as, redeeming Vader, kind of lets that get to his head a little bit. And maybe
Hmm.
that's, he's a little bit prideful when he starts his academy, still with good intentions.
Yep.
But, maybe he's just, got so much pride in himself. Maybe Kylo Ren or Ben Solo at that point. is his star pupil, and he's got so much pride in him,
Yep.
and then
This makes
somehow
him
he
blind.
falls. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like right now we're writing a better story
Yeah.
than what is happening on that
Yep.
screen in these 3 movies.
Yep.
Like, this is more plausible. This is more interesting. And again, like I said, and like you said, we're creating character growth without like, just pushing them to the opposite side of the spectrum.
Yep. And see, they took pieces and they could have filled in more than from the expanded universe. So in
Right?
the expanded universe, Han and Leia have three children. They have twins,
Mhm.
Jason and Jaina, and then Anakin, the youngest. Well, in the books, Jason, the eldest or whatever, does turn to the dark side, and his sister, Jaina, who could easily have been what Ray was instead, um,
Mhm.
has to be the one to turn him back or end him, like that's the
Right.
conflict there. Um, and you've got another interesting character in Anakin who has to now deal with the legacy of his, I was named after this evil person, basically,
Right.
like why, so you've got a lot of drama there set up already. If you just had stuck with those three characters, you wouldn't
Mhm.
have to, worry about a whole backstory and different thing with Ray.
Mhm.
Some miraculous other child that was, the granddaughter of Palpatine. That's a whole nother thing that they got us explain away quickly in the last episode. Whereas
It's
it would have been
terrible.
simple to have twins. Twins are close. Jason and Jane were close. So when one of them falls, when Jason falls, it's incredibly awful for not only Luke, who trained them, but also for his sister and also for his mom. And it's great drama and it's easy for them because it was already written. Like
Mhm.
those characters already existed.
Mhm.
Um, and y- you know, you wouldn't have to like explain that just Ray is just super powerful because of her bloodline. You know,
Right.
Jason and Jane and Anakin were all trained at the academy with others.
Right.
By they worked for everything they got,
Mhm.
and so you can see the pieces where they could have just not, And why does the Emperor have to be the thing again?
Ugh.
You know?
Yeah, I had a hard time with that. I, like, sort of loved it in, like, a very brief sense because, again, nostalgia,
Hmm.
Emperor Palpatine, like, he was, like, the big bad of the original, and it's sometimes kind of fun when, it's brought back, but there was so much, like, logical hoop jumping that you had to go through to, like, believe that he was back, and then,
Hmm.
like, he wasn't really back, but he was a clone of himself. Like,
And they
the
don't even
it was just
explain that in
it
the
was just
movie.
too much. Exactly, exactly. You don't even get that in there. You
It's
had to,
all
like,
this
read
other
all of the
stuff.
other stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
You
You
can't have
know,
that much supplement to a movie. Like, no.
right.
Your movie doesn't work at its fundamental core if I can't get those concepts. Those
Right.
aren't small things.
If they had been building towards the Emperor and made that clear, that we
Right.
could look back and be like, okay, and if it had been brought up about clones, if the group had been adventuring together and had come across these clones, like
Yes.
deformed or broken things, like they were
Right.
going on stuff, like because also in the expanded universe, the Emperor's spirit via the Force does go into a clone body. The tough part is he's now in a backup plan. He's got several clone bodies like ready, in case
Right.
he dies. The tough thing is he's in a younger body. So it's his youthful, like all the knowledge and experience, but now a youthful, more powerful body
Which is
that
terrifying.
right, that Luke can't just beat him again or something,
Yep.
so so Luke and Leia must team up to defeat the Emperor because he's
Mhm.
even more powerful now. That's awesome.
Right.
Unfortunately, they couldn't do that logically because they're too old. It's just too much time has passed, you know.
Right.
But they even could
Well,
have, yeah, they could have done something like that. Like he'd been waiting that long,
right.
in the shadows. They
Right.
could have, still not my
Well, and I
preference,
mean, you
but
didn't even need Luke and Leia at this point. I mean, if you're committed to like Kylo Ren and Rey as your leads, like that's fine. Like they can have help from like Luke and Leia, and that's
yep,
it doesn't have to exactly follow. But like you said, you can still things that don't exactly follow, but are
yep,
done well.
yep. Because so when I saying like we're talking about them discovering clones or something and doing this stuff,
Yeah.
the one of the biggest problems of the episode 9 is that we're supposed to care about these characters and think that they're best friends. So Ray, Poe, and Finn
Oh, yeah, yeah.
are all together and they're doing some stuff for once in episode 9, but we have no background for that. Like
Yep.
Ray and Finn did some things in The Force Awakens, and then Poe and Finn did a few dumb things in The Last Jedi.
Right.
But
We haven't
we
seen
don't,
them as a trio.
yeah, we don't have this rapport with them. We like, I don't know about you, but I don't care very like compared to Han, Luke, and Leia that they built those relationships and stuff. I don't care. And what is this like? So in they're clearly hinting in The Force Awakens that maybe Finn has a crush on Rey.
Yep.
So maybe there's something that comes up. Well, in The Last Jedi, then it's Finn and Rose. Rose is all over Finn. And then in this last one, it's like nothing. Like Rose, you're the past. I'm not interested in Ray anymore,
Yeah.
just other than like I'm worried for you. And there's just no there was no path or consistency. Han and
Yep.
Leia was built from the beginning. In A New Hope, they have that bickering thing or whatever, but there is like a spark. And then the next one, it clearly blossoms and then it concludes in The Return of the Jedi. It's a thing. It
Right.
makes sense. There's relationships between these people. And then you got a lot of people, they're like, Finn and Poe are gay. What? Like, there's no indication of that. Like, if you're going to go that route again, you'd have to do it. Like,
Right.
start and build it. They're not
Right.
doing any of that stuff. And it's just so I don't care about these characters when I'm seeing them go through this stuff. They barely do anything
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I can't say it enough. Like it's the casualty of having different directors with radically different visions, and no one being like, "No, I'm sorry that you have this vision, but we need this to like fit in a three-story arc." You know what I mean? Like
Mhm,
nobody had oversight of this. They just like let it happen.
mhm,
Um, so unfortunately, we do get this like wildly disjointed, like who is with who, like who cares about who, like here's a relationship that we built up and are now just like tossing aside because whatever, it's not what I want, you know.
yep,
So it is this like horribly mismanaged story arc that unfortunately gets no build because the things that you have like seeds for in the first one are torn down in the second and then sort of like hastily patched in the third.
mhm, yeah.
Um
Yeah, there's no
I
follow through on anything.
no.
And I don't
Um
it's like not just a directorial thing because the original
no,
trilogy
no.
is 3 different directors. But yeah,
No,
they
but
need to
I'm
be
saying
held
like
to a
there's no
script.
no person who like
Yeah,
oversaw all of this who's like I don't care that you have a different vision. I need you to fit this.
right.
Um So again, I feel like squandered opportunities because in the first one, I was interested in Finn defecting from the First Order. Like that was cool to me.
Yep.
Like this sort of like, ooh, where's this character, like gonna go? He was raised in the First Order. He's supposed to be a clone. Like he somehow breaks that. Can we like see other clones maybe go through this? Like this is really interesting to me.
Well, I don't know of
So,
him being a clone. I haven't heard anything about that bit.
potentially, um, yeah, sorry, I just lost my train of
Yeah.
thought.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
but no, it's okay. So, yeah, so Finn, like, being redeemed, I thought was really interesting, like, him sort of maybe crushing on Rey, I kind of, like, felt because, it's, like, the first bond he's had outside of
Yeah.
the First Order, and, maybe that sort of, like, in his mind is like, "Ooh, romantic." But then it was like, I'm kind of cool with, like, you maybe moving on in the second movie because I don't really need to see this, like, I don't really, like, feel it happening. I like you as friends. So I was, like, fine with this, like, move on to Rose, but then it, like, totally got cut down, and then in the third was, like, here's, like, some other random leader on another planet of, like, other, you know, people who defected from the First Order and were somehow finding each other, which was cool, but too late.
Yep.
Like, I wanted this, like, more explored in the first one and then, like, building up throughout. I don't know.
They would need to I'm okay if there was if it was between Finn and Ray wasn't going to be a romantic thing, but they need to
Yeah.
then explain why that became the case. Like, why is he
Yeah.
crushing all over and really worried? And then, they don't get to see each other. And like, uh, Finn is hurt and stuff. So when they get to reunite, why is there no more thing?
Right.
You know,
Right.
like, why am I just, you know, and so
And they
maybe it
sort of
was
try to
shot
like explain
down,
it. Yeah.
you know.
Or they try to explain it, I think, in the 3rd by him just being, like, force sensitive and, like, being drawn to Rey because he's force sensitive and she's so powerful, and I'm just like, that doesn't really get it for me, like, that's not enough for
So
me. Also, it's, like, super implied, and I need more. Like, you can't just, like, sort of float something out there and expect me to, like, take that as an explanation for, like, multiple story arcs that have been happening.
so Ray is so powerful, and she helps her and Kylo help rejuice Palpatine, and so powerful she can wipe out Palpatine and like nothing. That she doesn't know that Finn is force sensitive. Like
Right.
she's not aware of a connection there. She has a
Right.
connection
Even though she
across.
can't name it maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
we
it'll be
should
something
still
more
sense
obvious,
something.
like, if they're accidentally hearing each other's thoughts or something, or like
Yeah,
very clearly like predicting each other's moves or something like that. You know,
right.
if Finn was very aware of like where she was or a condition she was in, and she took note of that or something, like something was just tacked on the
Mhm.
end for I don't know why. Um,
Yep.
it's so weird. What did you think of all the, like, added new force abilities in the last one? Like, all of a sudden, you can, like Kylo can grab a necklace off of Rey or a thing from her hands or whatever from across space, like, via the force. They
Yeah,
can kinda have a lightsaber battle almost, like, things are interchanging. Rey gives him like, teleports Kylo Ren a lightsaber behind her back that Kylo
yeah.
Ren then has. Like, that's intense.
Um, yeah. I kind of so I liked some of it, because I felt like it was the result of them being a dyad,
Mhm.
and so they could do some extra things. Some of it I felt like went a little too far, um, but I kind of love the lightsaber thing because it felt like I'd already seen them grow in Last Jedi in their like, "I'm in your space, but I can't see you," or "I
Mhm.
can't touch you," and then it was like, "Oh, now I'm in your space, but I can touch you," and then, like, "Now I'm in your space, but I can, like, lightsaber fight you." Like,
Yeah.
that was, like, fine. I can see the progression that's happening here. Um, Other things were, like, a little bit, like, nuts, like, that they would just, like, connect so fast, or they would have, like, those extra powers, like you said, like, Rey just, like, force wills him a lightsaber. That was just like, "Oh, what? Okay, that's a lot. You can superhero all this shit now."
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so some of it I was fine with, and some of it was, like, a little over the top.
I think it was cool and I could have been happy with it if I'd felt it had been earned, you
Mhm.
know? So um if this was Jason and Jaina Solo, and they were twins and they had been trained for years together under Luke Skywalker and like
Right.
done all this stuff together, and they had this intense connection being twins, and they've done all this training. I can see them like on tapping some new force abilities that haven't maybe in the modern era of Star Wars that we know of been
Right.
utilized before.
Right.
Um, but I don't think they earned it because they did have that connection. But in The Last Jedi, Snoke said it was just him. How do you think you can connect? It's me. Or
Well,
what? Okay, so was he
but
lying
it clearly
then?
wasn't though.
But that means because Snoke is the puppet of Palpatine, that means that Palpatine knows of their connection and allows it to exist. So you're telling me that Palpatine now, ultimate supreme power of the universe, doesn't know that Kylo Ren is just going to betray him? I mean,
Yeah.
Palpatine was always like, your sense your feelings, Vader, or your feelings are unclear, all this
Right.
stuff. And so he can manipulate the galaxy from afar and all this stuff, but he doesn't know Kylo Ren is like has this bond that he
Sure.
lied about and is deciding to manipulate and betray him. Bonkers.
Well, and I think this is the result of inconsistencies in logic. So, like I sort of can buy that because Palpatine is a clone of himself. So I feel like him being a clone just makes him automatically a little bit less connected than his like being his self, or his true, organic form. Um, and then also he hasn't spent time with Kylo Ren the way he spent time with Vader, like day in, day out, like physically being near each other, like learning his little ticks and quirks and,
But if
so
Snoke is
so
his Palpatine's puppet that he's literally controlling from the background, like
but you're not there like in the everyday nitty-gritty of things. Like, yeah, you can suspect things, but like you just don't know how far they go
I
sometimes.
would see if
So yeah,
that
so yes, I agree, a stretch, totally, but a little bit maybe more, it had me jumping through less logical hoops
sure.
than other things did in the movie.
I did like in this last movie that something I like. I did like
Mm.
I mean, firstly some
A
of
rarity.
the locations and the looks and stuff. There were some
Yeah,
cool like
Exegol was cool.
yeah, battles, some of it was really neat, that kind of thing. But
Kefper,
I
like the destroyed, Death
yeah,
Star was kind of like crazy. It's like,
yep,
yeah, where did it go when it fell out of the sky or got blown up or
yep.
whatever? So that was kind of
Um
cool.
yeah.
Sorry.
I liked that the kind of the bad guy now was a bloodline Skywalker and the good guy
Mhm.
was a bloodline Palpatine. I just thought that was a
Yeah.
nice reversal, you know.
Yes.
Almost like they tried, almost like they tried to think of
They
something.
thought something through.
Yeah, uh-huh. So that was
Yeah.
kind of neat.
Yeah, it's tough how Ray gets there. I agree with you. I thought it was really cool to like have those roles reversed and like have, a Palpatine try to convince a Skywalker, of his goodness.
Hmm.
Um, but I have to say the way that Ray got there is like so silly. I just can't with Palpatine having a family. Like,
Oh,
I'm
I see. Okay.
sorry. Like,
Yeah.
it's really tough for me that like he has a failed clone who's somehow super young and is Ray's father and like falls in love with a woman and like has Ray.
So
I don't know.
I'll use this as another example for or excuse for show and tell.
Yay.
So this is potentially the first Star Wars book I read. I'm not for certain, but
Oh,
very
okay.
small book. It's called
Old
Star
school.
Wars Prophets of the Dark Side by Paul Davis and Hollis Davids. Paul Davids and Hollis Davids.
Okay.
Um, Basically, what this is about is the grandson of Emperor Palpatine. So, um,
How does he
it's
get there?
so I wish I could remember more, but
Okay.
basically, Palpatine has a son um, that is not force sensitive. So he has a son. His this guy's silly name, but he has three eyes. He has like an eye in the middle of his forehead, and
Okay.
he's not a very good guy. And understandably, Palpatine doesn't care for him at all. He has no.
Okay.
I mean, he's a failure as a son. I don't think there was a love situation.
Mhm.
With Palpatine, he had a kid. I wish I knew who the wife was, and like I said, I could remember that. But
Okay.
Palpatine isn't aware that his son has a son, and that son is very force sensitive. His name is Ken,
Okay.
um, and so Ken Palpatine, and so this is about Luke coming uh, into contact with Ken Palpatine and kind of starting him on the right path, and Ken discovering who he is and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a something that's taken, this like youth novel Star Wars youth novel that's taken, and you could see where it could be applied to
Sure.
the current trilogy.
Okay, so as hard as it is for me to like see Palpatine having a family, this sort of makes more sense to me. Like that sort of story makes more sense than like a failed Palpatine clone somehow wandering off and starting a family. You
Right,
know what I mean? Like either A, if Palpatine hadn't already been put in a successful clone, I don't know why he wouldn't have had that failed clone killed,
right.
or why his keepers wouldn't have done so, his caretakers wouldn't have done
Yep,
so. Like if he was a failure, then bye.
yep,
Like where
right.
how did he get out of there and like fall in love and start a family? And everybody was just like, it's probably gonna be fine. Like we
Yep.
don't even need to worry about that guy.
So, see what's interesting, and I don't know if this is how this is goes for sure, but this is before Palpatine's death, and so it's
Okay.
called Prophets of the Dark Side because there's these other like I think so um they're Luke and Ken are captured by Kadan, Supreme Imperial Prophet. They are whatever Supreme Prophet plans to steal ancient knowledge of the Jedi and stuff or whatever. But so it would make sense that Palpatine would basically just capture women and
Mhm.
impregnate them, probably,
Yeah.
and like trying to get an heir that he can control.
Yeah.
He can rise
That
up,
makes sense to
and
me.
you have,
I mean, it's
so
weird, but it makes sense.
right. So say they're having issues with clones, or even he doesn't like that idea, doesn't know if that's possible that he can transfer himself into another clone body. This is the first option.
Mhm.
Have yourself a powerful heir that you can manipulate and do your will.
Right.
And so when you have your heir and he's a failure and he's not force sensitive at all and he's a mutant, basically, you're like, blah, toss him out. Nothing,
Right.
And then he happens to have a kid, then you'd be after that kid,
Right.
So that's a potential story. Luke Skywalker would stop that. And then we're left with the okay, now I'm going to clone. I got that to work,
Mhm.
So
Yep.
another show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another case I think of a good idea gone wrong in the
Hmm.
movies.
Yep.
Like this is a cool concept. You just like lost me on the way that you executed it and the way that
Yep.
you built up the story to get there.
The whole thing could have been a cool like start of, trying to, the Republic is in a position of strength. They're trying to like bring peace and like, make sure not all these other systems slip through the cracks and stuff. Places like Tatooine aren't still dirt holes and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And you start getting you hear rumors about like, whispers through the galaxy, Palpatine isn't dead, Palpatine didn't
Mhm.
die, like there's some
Right.
bad stuff going on, whatever. And Leia, being intelligent general she is, sends her Jedi master brother and some of his pupils to like investigate what is going on with this, like
Mhm.
look around. And so they're digging to find like this clone, like, what do you mean he's not dead? It's not realistic, but you get
Right.
visions in the force, all of a sudden Luke's having nightmares, that kind of thing. And so
Right.
they're investigating, they find like, hey, there's another holdout of people working for the Empire and they've been guarding these clone bodies or something. Well, what does that matter? And then you find maybe
Right.
Sith text that talks about an ability to transfer your soul into an, whatever. Like, could be a whole trilogy worth of things. And eventually in the third movie, it comes to like, oh my God, he is alive. He is super powerful, and we're all gonna have to team up to defeat him.
Right.
Any number of options is my point. There are
Yes.
so many paths we could take here. Oh my God.
Yes. So much squandered. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So, oh,
I know
sorry.
we're kind of no, we're kind of running long.
Yes.
But I need to get this off my chest because it's like
Okay.
so painful.
Okay.
So 7 through 9, everybody's back, nostalgia, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and then sadly, tragically, Carrie Fisher passes away.
Hmm.
And they like shoehorned some extra footage, I felt like, into movie 9.
Okay.
And it was terrible. It was awful. I couldn't even stand it. Like, I would rather have had her just, like, somehow pass away, I think between 8 and 9, than what happened in movie 9, where she, like, was there, was training Ray, which again was, like, a cool concept, I thought, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Okay, Ray, you gotta go, and now I gotta go lay down and die for my son."
Yeah,
Like,
I that was
what?
weird. That was weird.
What? It felt, like, super disrespectful to not only Leia, but to Carrie Fisher.
Couldn't they
Like,
have
it
been
was just
attacked?
something.
You know?
Something should have happened.
Because
Yeah.
what was the
Even if she
explanation for
wanted to
why
give
she
up,
died?
she just was, like, reaching out to Ben at the same time that Rey was fighting him and was, like, trying to bring him back to the light, and then helped Rey, like, get him to a moment of clarity, and then, like, died, and he felt it, and it was like, "Oh, like, these yeah, I'm turned."
Okay.
I don't know,
Yeah.
it was so muddy and confusing, like, see, you, like, just watched the movie and you were even like, "What was the point of that?"
Yeah, no, I just watched it 2 days ago for the first time, and
Right.
when she died, I was like, I thought I remember someone saying a line like she doesn't have much time left or something,
Yeah,
but I don't know why.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, she
you
just, like,
know,
lays down and she's like, "I gotta reach out to Ben and make a connection," and it was then,
did
like, she just, like, slowly passes away.
did Carrie Fisher die before the theatrical release of The Last Jedi, or was it after?
It was after, I believe.
Okay. I thought it was before, but I have no confidence in that.
Oh,
'Cause
in the release of it?
yes.
Then yeah, then I think it was before, but she had finished shooting everything for The Last Jedi.
Because I feel like they could have.
Like, all of that was complete, and then she
Yeah,
was supposed to do other stuff for Rise of Skywalker, and
right.
then they had to, like, jam in the footage.
If she died before the release of The Last Jedi, I would have either one, um, you just when she gets blasted out in the airlock, you have her die there.
Right?
Um, or two, um, in this one, whilst everybody's gone and stuff, the fleet is gone, and whoever is left, they're attacked. Maybe
Mhm.
by the Knights of Ren that are supposed to matter yet, and she's killed that way, and that's like an ultimate betrayal
Mhm.
for Kylo Ren that his Knights of Ren killed his mom or
Mhm.
something, that she died that way.
Right.
But yeah, this just like it's another thing of one of the weakest parts of the prequel trilogy, actually, I think is um with Padme's like basically she has no will to live anymore,
Right.
which I understood more.
Women keep ending up with that.
Yeah. I mean, I understand more, but in that situation, but it was still kind of another thing like that, which was weird.
Right.
So,
Alan let us know that Carrie Fisher died on December 27th, 2016.
and the movie came out.
That's what I'm just asking him. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know it's December, but I don't remember,
Yeah,
like,
maybe
exactly
it was
when
really
everything comes
close.
out. It could have been really tight, yeah.
You know, um, I seen so December
Oh,
15th.
so
So
that's a whole
so they
year
could have
before.
they could have reshot. They could
Absolutely.
have had her die in the airlock, and they could have changed the whole path of thing. I mean, in The Last Jedi, one of the best things was, even though it was kind of poorly executed in ways, was when Rey and Kylo were fighting together, and she, Kylo wants her to join and stuff. If they had actually joined then, and like been like he'd come back then, and he'd use the death of his mother was like the thing that,
Right,
like that could have been a path that made sense a little more.
right. Could have fixed some other things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe it would've it's hard to tell because it's hard to tell, I think, sometimes what their focus is in this last trilogy. Is it Kylo Ren's redemption arc? Is it Rey? Like, are we fighting Palpatine suddenly now? And, like, is he the most important thing? Or are we still focused on, like, what Kylo Ren and Rey are doing? Like, there's just a lack of a drive, like a singular drive.
And
And
Yeah.
it might sound simplistic, but you can make things around that singular drive more interesting and more gray and more complicated, but
Yep.
there's no, like, this is the arc.
Yep. And they kept muddying it by um so they try to make a big deal of Captain Phasma,
Yeah,
and then she does nothing,
yeah.
you know. They keep adding characters. So that's
A lot
okay.
of setup for nothing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're not gonna have Finn be interested in Ray, so we're gonna add Rose. But then we're not gonna add Rose and we're gonna add this other character.
Right.
It just droids. Gotta add a new droid in every one or a new,
Yeah,
like just yeah, focus, have something that if Ray's your focus, which I think it is, that's where you start in this, she's your Luke Skywalker. You start in that, or your Anakin, you start in those shoes, and that's who you see, you know, move through this. You got to support that idea, and there's no support, you know.
yeah.
um, so is there anything have you been indulging in any other Star Wars stuff? Any other Star Wars things? Games or books or comics or,
Um,
anything else?
n Not as of late, although I have, requested to read some of, like, the background, novelizations of Star Wars because I remember reading those when I was very, very young, and I just feel like I don't remember them very well, so I'd like to read them now as an adult, and see what more I can get
Sure.
from that. But I am excited for, Galaxy of Heroes, the Star Wars game that's coming out. Because I
Okay.
was talking I was thinking about that, in the sense of, like, it's supposed to again and this is frustrating that we need it, but provide more backstory,
Mm,
and more explanation for the way that things are in 7 through 9. And I'm annoyed that I feel like I need so much extra material to explain 7 through 9, but I think there's probably a Star Wars fan in me that will never stop, wanting more,
mhm.
wanting to be like, I want logical choices behind, some of the decisions that were made. So I'm going to keep consuming all of this content and hope things make sense eventually. So I mean, I'm still
Um,
like wildly disappointed in the entire thing, but yeah, there's a part of me that still wants redemption for some of the choices.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to, like, um, because it's kind of why I want to talk about, there are some other Star Wars things
Yeah.
where I see some hope in right now.
Yeah.
And, I don't wanna.
Give me some hope, John.
Yeah, okay, alright. So, firstly, show and tell. I got a couple show and tells. This
Yay.
is Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. I played this on my Mac as a kid a lot too,
Okay.
and, they are going to be re-releasing that on the Switch, Nintendo Switch,
Oh,
coming up, so that's cool.
fun.
It is available on some, like, other, like, you can get it on, I think, Steam or GOG, but hasn't worked for me, as such is the nature of that stuff. Then Dustin, our friend, got me a while ago Star Wars Kanan, the graphic novel
Nice.
that covers Kanan Jarrus, whose voice was in the last movie, one
Right.
that spoke to Ray. So that's
Right.
cool little Easter egg thing. That's a good comic. It's a good character that was developed by, I suppose, Dave Filoni or something for Star Wars Rebels. That's cool, and I recommend it. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the video game.
Yeah.
That is a good game. Feels very Star Wars. It's nice to, like, when there's so much that I don't identify hardly as Star Wars, to have something that really feels like they care about it is nice. And then lastly, The Mandalorian.
All right.
Which did you get to watch any of that yet?
I have not, no, sadly.
Yeah.
That'll
So
be my project.
yeah, the rumor is that um, they're looking, the powers that be are looking to try to get um, Jason Favreau to use the second season of The Mandalorian to set up and explain some of the stuff from the last trilogy. It's a good thing.
Oh, okay.
And the rumor is that John Favreau says, no.
Good for him.
That's those are again, those are just rumors, and I really hope that's the case
I
because
agree.
we don't need to drag everything else down in order to try to explain your ridiculous crap. So,
Yes.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I know I said, like, I want things to explain the last trilogy, but I don't want everything focused
yeah,
at that.
there's going to be all
Like,
kinds of
I
books and
want The
comics. They're
Mandalorian to
gonna,
stand alone.
yeah,
Like, yeah, books and comics and things like that, and if there's, like I said, an element to a video game that, like, explains something, that's fine. I don't want it to be the whole video game, but if you've got, like, an element that's gonna support something, whatever, I'm
hmm
game. But yeah, no, I don't want, like, now other things being made to support this because that's just ridiculous. And I think, again, showcases, like, the poor filmmaking decisions that
yep.
were made.
So what is this Galaxy Heroes thing? I don't know if I remember what this is, but
So
it's a game coming to like all the consoles and stuff. Because I thought there was a
yes.
Galaxy of Heroes or mobile game or something. Maybe that's something else. Um,
Um, Let me see.
I know there was some other Star Wars game in the works that they had
Right.
talked about recently, but I don't remember that being what it was called. Um,
Oh, it is the mobile game.
it is okay. So they must
Yeah.
be adding story elements to that
Yes.
game to because I think it's popular.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
really.
so they're adding something that's going to explain, a little bit more background about, like, what a force dyad is and how, like, that operates for, Kylo Ren and Rey, and then, like, how you, I think, as a character can play as a force dyad.
Interesting. I mean, I would have. What do you think? I mean, I thought it was really dissatisfying in the Last Jedi to have this like get your hopes up that Rey and Kylo Ren were going to join forces, and then they don't. And then in the Rise of Skywalker, to get your hopes up that okay, they've completed this journey. He's come back to the light side. I've saved you. We kiss, which isn't romantic, by the way. And now I'm dead. So, like,
Yeah, it was just, like, perpetual disappointment.
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
what does this even mean? What is the point of you guys even being a dyad if, like, we barely know what that means? You just are one, and then, like, somehow one of you dies and you're just, like, super fine existing without the other?
Yep.
Like, what is
Right.
the importance of that then?
Right.
Like, romantic or otherwise, I don't even care at this point,
Yep.
you know, even though I felt like they built up to a romantic relationship and then it wasn't romantic, but
Yep.
some people think it is, and then it isn't, like, I don't even care at this point. Like, you have a bond. You've sort of half explained to me what it means, and now you're taking it away like it's nothing.
Mhm.
So it just another element of the movies where it, like, gets built up, it happens, it gets taken away, and there's no
There's
explanation
no
for, like,
payoff.
why. Yeah. No payoff. Yeah.
And the Emperor, I mean, if you were gonna die from your own force lightning, wouldn't you stop generating force lightning? I mean,
Right.
if you were gonna be the catalyst to like vanquish yourself, would you not like shut that off? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
That seems
And then
weird.
have Ray use her force lightning that we got a sneak peek of.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I
That
mean, if she can, I mean, I know it's like, "Oh, that's like a hallmark of the dark side," but, like, so? Like, we're sort of trying to build up to this, like, you don't have to be all dark or all light, like,
mhm.
sometimes, like, you can use your dark half and it's fine, and you're not just gonna, like, automatically be evil. I don't know.
So show and tell
Ooh,
time.
ooh, ooh.
Star Wars, The New Jedi Order, Traitor. Really good book. Um, one of my favorites, and it is about Jason Solo doing that very thing where he's like, there is no light and dark. Like it's just doing what's right. It's just the Force. And this book ends very hopeful like that. And you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but then he turns to the dark side. So he's trying to do that thing where like, yeah, you don't so that ultimately is the lesson. It's like you don't get to like, in real life it'd be like you don't get to ignore your morals here
Right.
and then play like you're pious on the other side. Like you don't get to do that. You have
Right.
to live a moral life or you're not moral kind of
Mhm.
thing. And so
Right.
it's that's the way they explain in there, but yeah.
All
Um
these good ideas, all for naught so
well,
far.
okay.
Unless they go back and make some more stuff.
I feel like I've complained a lot. Is there anything else positive? Like, what's Star Wars? Is Star Wars meant anything to you? Um, you have a really good Star Wars memory or something. Um,
Oh, I mean, obviously, like, I think my best memory of Star Wars is those re-releases in the theaters. Um, so like of the original trilogy. So
mhm,
much of things that I've come to love, um, I've actually gotten from my dad.
okay,
He is the one who took me to Star Wars when I was little. He is the one who gave me my first Lord of the Rings book. He gave me my first Game of Thrones book,
nice.
which I think is like kind of a risky
Yeah.
choice. Um, but he gave it to me and I was obviously like 19 years old at the time, for Game of Thrones anyway, and was like, "Yeah, I mean, there's some like dicey parts, but just kind of read around that, and the rest of it's good."
Yep,
Um, but it's kind of it all of that to me is nostalgic because it's something that my dad connected me with, and like he and I bonded over,
mhm,
and it's something that then even though I don't have kids right now, I still bond with other people over.
sure,
And these wonderful stories that we can all talk about. We can all see some similar things and some different things. I never tire of hearing new perspectives, agree or disagree. It always gives me something new to consider. And I love that these kinds of universes like Star Wars are so intricate and so detailed and have so much potential that, you can talk about them for hours. And there's so
yep,
much more to talk about all the time. I never feel like you run out of things to say.
right,
Which is tough for a
nice.
podcast,
Yep,
but in real life, talking with people,
yes.
it's pretty wonderful.
I don't anticipate anyone to listen to this whole thing, or at least not in one sitting. I completely understand
Yes.
that. I'm gonna show a couple more things, and then if there's anything else you want to wrap it up with, um,
Sure.
I I'll show you. This is my favorite Star Wars art, probably.
Oh, okay.
Um, so it's Children of the Jedi, and I just think it's gorgeous. It wraps around or whatever. I would love to have this as like a landscape painting thing sometime. It's just
Cool.
there's a lot of great. I remember as a kid. I mean, art used to just like I could look at it a lot, like, and I would get a lot out of it, from
Yeah.
comic books in particular. I'd read them over and over, and um, like they really said something to me. Speaking of comics, a couple of my favorite I couldn't find because I had already set it aside somewhere to like hang up later. A couple of my favorite. So I've got Tales of the Jedi and X-Wing Rogue Squadron. So Rogue
Yeah.
Squadron was a popular book series and comic series. It's got Wedge Antilles on there. Um, good art in that and a fun line. It was good. It's like Rogue One where you're on the ground more, boots on the
Mhm.
ground, not force users kind of thing. It was good stories like that.
Right.
Um, Star Wars, Tales of Jedi, Dark Lords of the Sith. This is the biggest thing that if I ever have confidence again fully in the leadership at Lucasfilm and Disney, I want them to tackle. So they're going forward in Star Wars for it in what's called the High Republic. So it's before the prequel trilogy, but not early enough that it's like Knights of the Old Republic kind of era. This
Right.
is like 2000 years before Luke Skywalker kind of stuff. And it's got really dramatic, great stories that are ripe for the picking if they ever decide to talk about it. Naomi
Mhm.
Sunrider is your like one of your main protagonists and she's great. Um, and then I guess the last thing, and a little bit of Star Wars tidbit stuff. I should find somewhere and post it when I took a picture as a kid. behind, like in front of all the Star Wars stuff I had. Like
Oh,
just
do
like
that.
standees and like figures and just like the whole thing. I'm there with a Star Wars shirt on. Not this
Yeah,
one, even though this one is from like middle school or something.
that's
um,
awesome.
this is episode one shirt from when the movie came out. Um, but yeah, I should find that. But then Shadows of the Empire, one of the
Okay.
big pushes after, before the prequel movies had come out. This book takes place between episode 5 and 6, and it's explaining where, like the Luke and stuff trying to rescue Han, like
Oh,
where
yeah, okay.
Han is because he's in frozen in carbonite. So it's got Boba
Right.
Fett. It's got this cool like new bad guy. It's got great art. They made well, the cool thing about it is they made everything for this that they would for a movie except for the movie. There's a video game. There was cool like cards or art books. There's the novel. There's comic books. There's action figures. They made everything for it except literally the movie. And so it's well done. It's well thought out. It's got another thing like Leia is kind of involved with another guy in
Oh,
between, but it's not what you think. The guy has kind of like his race sort of has this. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a pheromone thing almost, and so
okay.
she's being lured um, by this bad guy. And it's got Dash Rendar in it, who's our replacement for Han Solo while Han Solo's in Carbonite, and he's amazing. Um, so, anyways,
Well, maybe we can ask the team from Rogue One if they can give this a shot.
yeah,
Kind of
right.
redeem the Star Wars universe.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that there was a real struggle to make that movie. Like there was reshoots, a lot of
Mhm.
reshoots, and there was a different director for
Yep.
episode 7 originally, or no, or yeah, episode 7 I think, Colin Trevorrow. So like it's weird because it seems like there are powers that be that are trying to fit like an idea of what they want, because you have directors leaving and reshoots having to happen. You
Right.
know, what was it? What's his name? Opie. Um,
Oh, oh,
um,
oh, yeah.
wasn't he
Um,
credited then as like directing Rogue
yes.
One?
Oh
Even
my
though
god, what is his name?
uh, ah,
I know, I
it's
can see his face so
bad. Yeah,
clearly.
yeah.
Uh,
Um, let's
Ron
see.
Howard.
Ron Howard.
Oh my
Yes. Oh, yes.
god. Thank you, Alan.
So, because he's like credited, isn't he credited as directing Rogue One? I think, but he didn't do most of it, and like
Right.
it was a mess. Um, so it's weird that that's the case when there's so
Right.
little, like seemingly so little structure and thread through it all.
Yeah,
Through
and
line.
somehow it came out wonderfully, I feel like
Yes.
anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, maybe that gives us hope, that even, like, if the Star Wars sort of, like, leadership right now is chaotic, like, even though there's
Mm-hmm.
chaos, like, you can still make something great out of it, like, 7, 8,
Yep.
and 9 were chaotic as all get out, but, like, something great could have come out of it.
Yep. Well, I'm hope my hope. John
Mm.
Favreau, Dave Filoni, you are my only hope. Um, that's that I have.
Help us.
Yes, yes. So, all right. I feel like I've talked a long time.
Well, we are
Um,
coming up on 2 hours.
I'm intentionally not keeping track of the time. Not keeping track. But it's this or like you'd end up splitting it up, and
Yeah,
then we're gonna have other news to cover and have to talk about Westworld and all that stuff.
right.
So did we get it out of our system? Did I get out of my system? Are we?
Did we?
I don't know. Never,
I mean,
never.
you're the one who's seen, Rise of Skywalker most recently, so you would have the most, I think,
I thought it would be more
to
bad.
vent about.
I thought
Okay.
it would be more bad than it was. S
Hey, that's a positive, right?
I know, right? Yeah.
It was less bad than I thought.
Yep. Well, there's a lot we didn't talk about, like, he's on
True.
there's always more stuff, we'll have to do a follow-up of more, things to come sometime when there's more Star Wars things out.
Well, maybe we'll have to also try and do a marathon rewatch. You watch it my way, I watch it your way, and we see what we see.
A marathon, I mean, I've
Yeah.
done 1 through 6 as a marathon before. That's a long
Well, I don't
one.
mean like all in the same day,
Oh,
like,
okay.
but try to do like a
Yeah.
rewatch, in close order. I mean, don't wait like months between, but
Yeah. Maybe leading
maybe do a
so
trilogy at a time.
the big push this fall is going to be, I guess say Star Wars: The High Order. So it's their
Mhm.
new
Yep.
era they're talking about and new books and comics and all that stuff. And so hopefully get into that and report it and let you know if it's complete garbage or if there's something good in there. Um,
Sure.
and maybe leading up to that, we could do that.
Yeah, that'd
So
be fun.
start watching some movies again. That. All right. Any last thoughts,
Alrighty.
Andrea?
See Star Wars, no matter what we say here today. It's still
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And start with episode 4.
I'll let you have the last word.
No,
All right. Oh, yeah, the last word on it.
it's all
Yeah.
right. I would say see Star Wars no matter what you start with.
Hey, what's your Star Wars shirt? You said you had a Star Wars shirt. Does it say
Oh,
something or
it does. It just says rebels
rebels
have
have
more
more
fun.
fun? Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So just a little subtle tribute.
Yeah, because if you disrespect leadership, they don't force choke you.
That's right.
So,
A lot
yeah.
more fun.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for joining me again, Andrea. It's been a
Yes.
long one, but
Good
yeah,
talk though.
yeah, yeah. I think
We
we
got a
covered
lot
the
off our
thing.
chests, I think.
Yeah, and we weren't all negative. It just got there towards the end, but we wrap it up happy, right? So,
That's right.
yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.